Syrians, the Greys knew exactly how to manipulate the whole situation to their favor. They played both sides against the middle. They went to Marduk, knowing he was a dumbass, but also the son of Prince Ea. They went to him and said, you see what they did to your father? You want to get even? We'll help you. We'll back you in the next campaign for control. Marduk's like, yeah, because what were the Greys doing? They were banking on inflating his ego because he was too dumb to think any other way. So they blew up his ego and told him, you're the one who should be in charge, and we'll back you. Marduk leads the revolt against Enlil, throws out Enlil, now takes over middle management with the Anunnaki, at which point the Greys realize that with this imbecile at the head of the game, they can easily take over. So they follow through on their plot, go after Marduk, throw him out, throw the Anunnaki out, lock down the whole damn kingdom, and from that point on, they take over the entire operation. Now, of course, with all this going on, you have to ask yourself, what saved their asses from being eliminated by them, because this was a total violation of the treaties and relationships for producing a bottom line profit for the corporation. Well, the fact of the matter was, they were sent by the Sitar queens, and after they took over, they went to the queen and said, look, Anu's sons are a bunch of imbeciles ruining your bottom line. If we take over, we'll run everything on a dime, and you'll get your profit every time. So the Greys have been skating by on thin ice ever since then, with the promise that they'll keep the paycheck going to the queens to keep everybody happy. But of course, this created animosity with Anu, who was the favored one by the Sitars. As you can tell, the history of this solar system is like a soap opera on steroids, all right? So you've got that going, a total lockdown on the planet. The Greys take over. Well, something interesting happens here, okay? From the Greys, they decide, why knock a good thing? They decide to, based on the two-party system that already existed, they reinvent the two-party system. Only in their case, they call it, because of course now they are suddenly thrusted into the position of upper management. They wanted to recede into the background. They needed to reestablish a new two-party system to do all the work for them. So upper management, in this two-party system that's created by them, they invent the Raka pharaohs, okay, and the Raka shields, okay. And of course, as you already figured out, from Raka pharaoh comes the term Rockefeller. From Raka shields comes the term Rothschild, two-party system, okay. They invented that. Now, they were known as the stonemasons, and since they were allowed to walk freely among the population like a Schutzstaffel, they became known as the Freemasons. Greys are the Freemasons, okay? This is why there's always this favoritism towards the pale-skinned abomination that does not belong to the family of man. Why? So they get this far here, okay? Knowing that, in comes the Ankhils and the Moorish legacy. The Ankhils, who had a relationship with Ea and Ninhursag, saw all this crap going down. And even though they did not have a direct relationship with what was going on, they couldn't exactly step in forcibly. That wasn't their way. They realized where the gene for passion went and where the royal blood went, okay? They decided, let's do it that way. This serves as the beginning of the concept of guerrilla warfare, operating underground, all right? From the gene for passion, from the concept of the anointed ones, comes the Moorish legacy. That Moorish legacy is represented by the term Temple of Solomon. And it's in the name, just like the word Adam, Solomon. You break it down to 3 syllables, Sol, Oman. Sol is Latin for sun, Om, sound to light. So Om is frequency, and On is Sanskrit for sound to light. Basically, the name Solomon is a linguistic symbolism for awakening the beast, okay? And of course, the Temple of Solomon is symbolically associated with gold, because gold is the perfect conductor of electricity, which brings us back to the concept of Frankenstein's monster being awakened, okay? By using gold as a conduit, the beast is awakened. It's a symbolism. Some people argue, oh yes, the Temple of Solomon really exists, there really is the gold. Okay, whatever, but who cares? What are you going to do when you find it? They're going to put a gun to your head and pull the trigger anyway. So who cares if it really exists? What matters is, towards this legacy, towards the family of man, it must be understood that the Temple of Solomon is a powerful symbolism for keeping the body healthy and pure. Okay? From what had happened here was that you've got the family of man now, inheriting the Moorish legacy, inheriting the legacy of the anointed ones, through the Temple of Solomon, using it as almost like a filter, a spiritual filter. The gene for passion filtered through the Temple of Solomon becomes what you guys know as the passion of the Christ. Okay? Now, that term Christ, a bastardized term, spelt with CH, which is an Anglo-Saxon English spelling, totally wrong. The original proper spelling of it, it's not someone's last name. It's a title. It's a title for all major prophets. Every major prophet is called a Christ. It is spelled K-R-I-S-T, not C-H. K-R-I-S-T, Muhammad, the Christ, Buddha, the Christ, Isa, the one you call Jesus, the Christ, okay? Noble Drew Ali, the Christ, okay? Adam, the Christ. This is why you get the concept of the Christ energy coming through the bloodline of the prophets. It came from the gene for passion that was pumped into the anointed ones, okay? Now, being that the Greys were not stupid. They knew what was still there. They knew they couldn't, even with the Arian technology, they couldn't fully erase that gene for passion. They couldn't get to the anointed ones. They were hiding out. And even with the Adapas, they had to constantly keep them brainwashed. And God forbid they should be taught by the Iesu to wake up and realize their true legacy as custodians of the earth. You don't want the slave population waking up to that. What had happened was that with the Moorish legacy coming out of Africa, Mother Africa, all right? That's an important term because later on it's slandered and erased by the Masonic agenda and therefore called the Dark Continent, all right? What had happened was that there was a certain segment of the population in northern Africa which started becoming very warlike, losing its way with Mother Nature, losing its connection and responsibility. Remember, custodians of the land, responsibility to Mother Earth. This particular population in northern Africa started acting very warlike, troublesome. They lost their way. They began to experiment on themselves, mutilate themselves, to the point where they bled all of the color right out of their skin. No more color. They became the pale skins, what you now know as Caucasian. They became so warlike and such a big problem that the rest of the Moorish people got together and was like, what the hell are we going to do with these guys? You know, they just won't stop. They're going to overtake everything and destroy us. So they decided to banish them. This is where you get the concept of being banished from the Garden of Eden, okay? They decided to banish them, and by banishing them, they had to pick a spot to stick them. Well, there's only one continent on the planet that doesn't start with the letter A, and that's Europe. It's in the name, your rope. Rope, you hung yourself, okay? Europe is named after the African queen Europa. Europe was a dead wasteland, and it was used as a transcontinental prison to dump all the assholes who were causing a problem, namely the pale skins. So what happened was they cast it out of Africa because they couldn't stay there anymore anyway. They had burned all the color out of their skin. No more melanin. You can't sit in the sun anymore. I burn like a lobster when I go to the beach. So they had to get out of there anyway for health reasons. There were several reasons. One, they were no longer part of the family of men. Two, they were pale skinned. They couldn't stay in the sun anymore. Three, they were destroying the environment, polluting it, experimenting on themselves in abominable ways, producing these defective genetic offspring that you wouldn't even want to speak of. A good example would be the abominations you saw in Lord of the Rings trilogy, all those disgusting things that were created by Sauron, okay? They dragged them across the deserts of Arabia. This is where the bitterness begins. Their pale skin being scorched by the desert. and dumped them in the cooler, less sun-like atmosphere of Europe.